welcome in our panelists and all of our parents who are out there tonight. My name is Ryan Aselta. I think I've met many of you over the last couple months in your visits to St. Joe's. I'm the Director of Admissions and Marketing at St. Joe's, and we're excited to have you for our third edition of our SOFA Social series. Tonight, we are talking about curriculum and guidance, and we have a star-studded panel here with you tonight to answer many of your questions. I'm going to introduce them in just a moment. The flow of the evening will go like this. In your Q&A button, you simply can type in any question you have for any of us pertaining to guidance, curriculum, teachers at St. Joe's. Of course, admissions and scholarship questions are always open for me to answer here, since you have me on for the next hour or so. So in the Q&A button, just click that, submit your question, and then I will direct that to the appropriate person so we can get your answer. So let me introduce our panelists right now. In your top left corner is Arlene DiFiore. She's the Director of Guidance at St. Joe's. In your top right corner is Marty Doherty. Marty runs our Knightsbridge Academy, which is our academy in between 8th and 9th grade. He is also a English and social science teacher at St. Joe's as well. Mr. Dave Stoto is with us tonight. He's our assistant principal of academics. And Steve Trevino is right there in the green shirt. He's our assistant principal of staff development. And both Steve and Dave continue to be teachers at St. Joe's as well, so they can answer your questions from an administrative standpoint, but also from a teacher perspective as well. And like I said, simply click the Q&A button to get things started. You can submit your questions and we will direct those questions to the appropriate people. And I'm going to start with a question for you, Dave, that many families ask in general about curriculum. Can you explain the different levels of curriculum at St. Joe's and the process of how a young man goes from 8th grade and finding himself placed into a certain curriculum for his classes?
Yes, absolutely. So we have 4 different levels. So freshmen coming in will be placed into the CP or college prep level. We have an accelerated level. We have an honors level. And then for our Donnelly scholars, it's a combination high honors and advanced placement in freshman year. So we'll look at the HSPT scores. We'll look at students' grades. We're also going to be looking into a math placement test this year because so many students have disparate backgrounds in math. And we're going to look at all those factors and place students into one of the levels for each course that they can: biology, math, science, history, English, language, etc. So it's possible that a student could be an all CP level or all high honors. But it's also possible that student might be stronger in math and science and maybe be in a higher level there. And maybe a parent might say, I'd prefer him to be in a lower level for English or history. So we work with parents over the summer once the schedules come out in late June and really kind of tweak the schedule so that we can really challenge each young man as much as possible without overwhelming him. So as parents know students best, we'll work with them to figure out really the best schedule for each of our incoming students.
And when Dave mentioned the 4 levels of curriculum, the Donnelly Scholars is our highest level of curriculum at St. Joe's, which now it's in our 3rd year at St. Joe's. So our inaugural Donnelly Scholars class are currently juniors. And these are the students who have shown themselves to be the highest level achievers academically coming into St. Joe's, whether that be with their grades through middle school, the highest HSPT scores. And we've seen these boys have great success at St. Joe's in their program. It's a select program. It's limited to a smaller amount of students in that program. And they do have some privileges that are afforded to them in the Donnelly Scholars program. They do have special speakers that will come into their classes. They go on field trips that are strictly for the Donnelly Scholars. They do have access to some SAT and PSAT prep that they do leading up that the other students in the building do not necessarily get. This is specifically for the Donnelly program. And we're confident through this program, we're going to see these boys who are now juniors start applying to some very prestigious universities and colleges and hopefully going on to those schools. Arlene, let me ask you just in general about the Donnelly Scholars, the students you've come in contact, you've worked with a lot of these students, especially this year. It's our first group is finally starting that college process. What are you seeing with them? And are we starting to see that these boys are going to be shooting pretty high with the type of schools they're looking at?
Yeah, they really are shooting pretty high. The PSATs have not been open to the public yet. They haven't been released. The guidance counselors, I do have the scores, which I am not permitted to release until a certain date, December 5th. But I was very impressed with the scores that these students made. I was very impressed with some of the scores that many of the students made, Donnelly scholars or not Donnelly scholars. Particularly I was focused on the Donnelly scholars because it is their inaugural year. The PSAT, of course, is for national merit and for commended students. So that's a nice little, it's a nice little thing to put on your resume, on your transcript, that you were recognized in this regard. So the scores have been good. I'm very pleased. And I think the high rigor of a classes, those, really do help in terms of your testing program.
Okay.
Also, Ryan, if I could just
Yeah, go
add,
ahead, Dave. Yeah, absolutely.
so also the Donnelly Scholars, that group took the AP World History as freshmen. It was the first time we've done that, which is, again, a number of them received college credit as freshmen based on their scores on the AP test. So this year, most of them that are taking at least 3 more advanced placement courses. So by the end of this year, we're going to have a number of advanced placement AP scholars. And then by next year, we'll be looking at AP scholars with distinction, AP scholars with honors, and most of them will be coming from the Donnelly scholars. But also, we're going to have students who are not Donnelly scholars, who are taking a number of APs this year as juniors. And again, they're not only will they be AP scholars, but they're going to get that college credit, which is going to, in some cases, take off a semester of college. In some cases, just save them a great deal of money.
Okay. All right. We have our first few questions coming in. Our first question is, with St. Joe's being a smaller school, how would you describe the dynamic between teacher and student in the classroom at a school like St. Joe's? Steve, why don't you take that? You work with many of the teachers. You're also in the classroom as a teacher. How would you describe the environment, the learning environment with the size school that St. Joe's is?
Yes, Ryan, thank you. Certainly, a lot of the time when I speak to our teachers, we speak about creating that relationship in the classroom, being able to understand the boys, understand their learning abilities. A lot of times what we do is we have groups that get together. All of our freshman teachers are coming up soon. All of our junior and senior teachers will get together so we can think up and look up strategies that will help these young men improve because of their individual learning strategies. Not necessarily having a learning plan, but we start to learn as teachers what lights the light bulb. And we want to look into our classrooms and treat every boy fairly, but we can't necessarily treat them all the same. So we've got to find out what makes them tick and what makes them work. So creating an alignment with the students, creating a partnership is so important in the classroom. And coming up with a curriculum that excites them is one of the things that St. Joe's is really excellent at, and having a number of classes as they move along throughout their time here that will kind of give them a guide into what's going to happen at the next level. So our teachers are really, really looking into becoming a part of their learning process each year that we get a chance to be introduced to these young men.
Yeah, and it lends itself, I think, to a lot of hands-on learning. I know your forensics class is very popular with the boys. In a smaller environment, the boys are really able to get their hands dirty, so to speak, in the classroom. I know we have some science classes like that as well, that the boys step away from their desk and they can really take part and be interactive. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that in all the classes across the board, not just in science, but they try to be interactive. We don't have exams per se, but we instituted obviously quarterly projects, which get a chance for the young men to show off some of their talents, not so much in an ABCD multiple choice test, but also being creative in a report, dioramas, other kinds of activities that are done so that they can be judged on their talents as a whole young man, instead of just on a test that they've done. We talked a couple of weeks ago to the teachers about how we have a tough job, that we have both a finite and an infinite goal. We have finite goals which we have to attain: pass the test, do your homework, make sure you take care of the exams. But at the same point, we have an infinite goal of creating a young man who will blossom at the next level and beyond. So we have the rigor of the finite goals in our classroom, but we also have the goals of making sure that we are manipulating and not manipulating, excuse me, we are cultivating these young men into better and better community, better part of our community and society as a whole. Excuse me.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we have some other questions coming in. Remember, you can click the Q&A button on your Zoom screen and then just type in your question, and we'll make sure we get it to the appropriate person. Leslie wants to know if a child is struggling, do they have the option to be put in a CP class without having a negative impact? Dave, why don't you talk about that? I know some of the boys move around sometimes. Some of them have classes in certain level and others in a different level. Maybe address Leslie's concern of any of that having a negative impact.
Yeah, there's absolutely no negative impact. In the first 2 weeks of school, we had maybe 10 incoming students who needed to switch, in some cases move up, in some cases move down. As Steve said, the freshman teachers met as a group, and in some cases they kind of discuss, yeah, this student is definitely belongs up in a higher level, or maybe is being challenged here. So what moves can we make? So those first 2 weeks of school, we moved maybe about 10 freshmen. And then once the marking period ended, either based on a teacher recommendation or a parent request or a student request, we'd move a student. Once they move, there's absolutely no negative impact whatsoever. They just will have that as a different course on their report card and on their transcript. And we just kind of transfer the grades over. So it's never really an issue. It's never anything anybody would know about. And the teachers, again, because we are a small school, the teachers all know the students coming in and have good relationships with them. It's very easy to make that switch at any point, either the first 2 weeks or at the end of the first quarter. And then at the end of the first year, we're going to make more switches. So in January, after midterms, teachers are going to make recommendations for next year for the students, which level they should go into. And at this point, they may move into many different levels, whether it's high honors, accelerated, or CP. So the teachers will make those recommendations. And what I always tell the boys is, you're going to know that. And if you're not happy with that recommendation, you're in control. You're the one who can now say, I'm going to, over these next couple months, show this teacher that I really do belong in honors. And absolutely in the summer, we'll make more changes if over the second half of freshman year, they've made adjustments and really have figured out how to master that subject. So we're constantly tweaking schedules, and there's absolutely no negative impact to it. It's just, it doesn't show up in any way on their record.
Okay. Our next question is about the Knightsbridge Academy. Can you tell me more about the Knightsbridge Academy and the type of curriculum that the boys are taught? So the Knightsbridge Academy is, the word bridge tells it all. We're bridging the gap in between 8th and 9th grade for boys. One of the requirements is you have to have graduated 8th grade. So it's not an 8th grade program. You had to have already graduated 8th grade, and some families are looking for their son for many different reasons to get another year under their belt before they start their high school career. Marty Doherty runs our Knightsbridge Academy. This is also a program that's in our 3rd year and has had great success with now seeing boys who have graduated out of the Knightsbridge Academy and are either 9th or 10th graders now and having success in the classroom, on the athletic fields, in our community as a whole. Marty, can you just talk a little bit about how that curriculum and that flow of the start of the year and how it ends up kind of transitioning into a different type of curriculum more in the second half of the year?
Yes, and I particularly like the question, what curriculum do you cover? Because I often, when talking to parents, they might say something like, well, they're repeating 8th grade. And I will emphasize, there's no repeating 8th grade, nor is there going to be, you get an entire preview of 9th grade. It is truly just an opportunity to become more proficient learner in as many areas as we can cover: writing, vocabulary, grammar, study skills, history. And we pick topics in all of those that perhaps they've covered in their literature classes in the past, but that happens at every level. You know, 9th graders come in and say, oh, I read this already. Well, we're now going to study this at a deeper level. We're going to write about it. We're going to react about it. We're going to discuss it. So the topics are simply designed to be, we're going to make you a more critical thinker. We are going to make you participate more than you ever have before at any level of school, because there's no hiding. You know, you're going to be involved and you have to give your thoughts, and the social skills involved with doing that are also an excellent opportunity. And it all factors into the curriculum that we're doing. We are simply making the students better students. They are going to be proficient, and they're going to go home and feel that and share that with their parents too, saying like, I've accomplished more than I've ever had. I'm putting those words in their mouths, but that's something that's going to be an outcome where they feel the success and their growth simply because they have to participate, and they have to participate at their individual level. So I don't want to speak too much more because I'll do follow-up questions, but there are, as you said, with the Donnelly Scholars, we've had Donnelly Scholars, potential Donnelly Scholars in the Knightsbridge program. We've also had students that might be students that need a lot of reinforcement because school has not been the most successful part of their life, and we're able to meet the needs of all learners.
Yeah, a great way to put it. And just from an admission standpoint, applying to the Knightsbridge Academy is the same as applying to ninth grade. You really just need to check a different box. The requirements for the application are the same. We do not require the HSPT to be taken to be a part of the Knightsbridge Academy. If you are set on becoming and going into the Knightsbridge Academy, you don't need to test this year if you were looking to be a part of that. If you do complete the program and graduate from the Knightsbridge Academy, you are automatically accepted into ninth grade at St. Joe's. And you'll have that opportunity, if you'd like, as part of the program, to take the HSPT as part of the Knightsbridge Academy, if you're interested in doing that. And that'll be used for placement and scholarship consideration. And we've seen some great success. Some boys have gone through the program, come in as one type of student into the Bridge program. They've done very well. They've taken the test or taken the test again and earned merit scholarships as ninth graders at St. Joe's. So the success really speaks for itself right there in the Knightsbridge Academy. Okay, Nicole has a question. With students coming from so many schools and different districts and towns, how do the teachers find balance in creating a curriculum and environment that differentiates learning and teaching styles in the classroom to keep everyone engaged? Steve, do you want to talk about that as far as keeping these boys engaged? They all come from many different backgrounds. In fact, we're probably near about 150 different towns that our students come from at St. Joe's. Steve, just need you to unmute. There we go.
The curriculum itself lends itself to a modified schedule so that we can introduce that's what's going on in all high schools across America. But at the same time, our teachers have the individuality to sculpt that program into the needs of the class that they have in front of them. I will keep emphasizing the fact that there's a lot of individuality within our classrooms, and we speak to the boys that are in front of us, not necessarily to a particular state standard or a curriculum. We want to make sure that we're teaching what's meant to be done, but doing it in the right way so that it again fits what's going on with the boys in front of them. So yes, they come from many districts, but let's not forget, we preach right away from the very beginning. We preach a brotherhood, and they all work together for a common goal. And that teacher is the one that sets the tone, is almost like the coach in the class, making sure that it's these specific goals are laid out in front of them, and they all look to attain them together. So it's a combination of the teacher and the students together working for those goals.
Okay, great. Our next question is regarding the guidance department. What does the guidance department do to help eighth graders transition into high school and all the challenges they face coming out of middle school? Arlene, it's a big transition for these boys, right? They're coming from middle school, they're coming in from many different places, and they're going to a new school and high school. So it's a big jump for many of them. What do you guys do to help that transition for them?
Well, before I even start with that, I just wanted to say one thing about the Knightsbridge program, because it was a very good question that Leslie raised earlier about is there any indication on a transcript? My main concern about our students is how that transcript is going to look for college. And I think you have to also understand, we don't have a withdraw. You know, many schools will say if you drop a class, it'll be withdraw pass or withdraw fail, and withdrawals are never great to see on a transcript. So be assured that doesn't happen, as Mr. Stoto said. The other thing is with Knightsbridge, Knightbridge, you're not going to see that a student ever even attended an additional year prior to starting his 9th grade. Okay, so that's not going to be at a disadvantage in any way, shape, or form when it comes to college. It can only be an advantage because you have another year of maturity and of education behind you before you actually start where grades, in fact, do count. With grades, in fact, starting to count in 9th grade, it is important to have a wonderful transition to high school. And because, as just like in college, if you're going to drop out, if you're not going to have a successful experience, it's going to be that first year. So we have taken it upon ourselves to have a specially dedicated freshman counselor, who's Mr. Doherty, who's actually Mr. Michael Doherty. And he is our designated freshman counselor. So he meets with the kids individually. I mean, at this point, we don't really talk college. We talk resume. We talk extracurricular activities. We talk, becoming integrally involved and doing the best you can do. They don't know that, but that's all has to do with transcript. But we don't go college. The stress of that would be not very good on a 9th grade level, just to do their best. And he makes sure he follows up with them. It's constant oversight, constant monitoring. We also work very closely with our wellness counselor, who's Mr. Rosetto. And as a matter of fact, a young man came in today and was having some anxiety problems in terms of his grades went down a couple points. And, this is high school. Don't worry. I have ebbs and flows. And we were going to set him up with the counselor who was very willing to see. So he'll be seeing him once a week for a while until he gets on the right path there. But Mike has done a wonderful job with our 9th grade counselors and introducing them to the culture of St. Joe's, the activities that are available to them, making sure they become integrally involved, because then they, it's not just academics, it's that holistic approach to educating a child. And kids learn as much outside a classroom in St. Joe's as they do inside the classroom. And that's what's really, really important.
Great. Our next question is, what is the foreign language requirement? I'm concerned my son is behind in this area. Do students generally take a new language starting freshman year? As far as a new language, if your son has taken Spanish through 7th and 8th grade, they can continue taking Spanish. Right now, we are offering Spanish and Italian as a foreign language. And Dave, as far as the requirement, can you just go over the boys do need to take a foreign language each year, correct?
Right. So they'll take, the requirement is 2 years of the foreign language. A good number of them go into a 3rd year. So this year, as you said, we have Italian for the first time. So we're going to hope to obviously continue that program where there would be an Italian 3 and then advanced placement Italian also. Mr. Mozzarella has taught advanced placement Italian in his old school in Princeton. So we're going to eventually add that as well. So they have the opportunity to go through 4 years of a language, but 2 years are the requirement. And students actually come into the honors classes in Spanish or in Italian, in many cases not having had the language. So the class begins with the assumption that they really haven't had much experience at all in the language. So there's absolutely no fear of, you shouldn't have any fear if you don't have a strong background in that language. Or if you want to switch a language, you could absolutely still be in an honors level course in language without having any experience in the language.
Yeah, and I can speak firsthand to that as a parent. I have a 9th grader at St. Joe's now who took French through middle school and decided to change to Italian this year in 9th grade. And there's been no problem with that. He has picked up on it, has not had a tough time with starting a new language fresh with no experience in Italian. Other than us being Italian, he has no experience speaking Italian. He's doing pretty well in that. So no concerns there. Kevin's got a question. Great to see Kevin on here tonight. Does SJR offer engineering or robotics classes or as part of any course? And a second question is, even in the lowest track, can a student take an AP test one day? So Dave, why don't you address the engineering and robotics and how students can get a little bit a taste of that while they're at St. Joe's?
Okay, so we absolutely have an engineering course for our seniors, engineering principles, and we have had robotics. Last year, our robotics teacher retired, I should say, and we're actively seeking to start that program up again. We do not have that course this year, but we want to get it back. We also have had a club in robotics. And the second part of the question about students starting in CP, we've had many students start in CP, work their way up. Sometimes in freshman year alone, I had one freshman this year started in CP and he's in honors courses after he got started in the first marking period. Typically at the end of the first year, students will move up to accelerated or honors. And then by junior, senior year, we'll have a number of them who could take any number of advanced placement courses and then get college credit if they want to. You know, it's entirely their choice. But students, I teach an advanced placement psychology course, and there are students who have never taken advanced placement before, but are taking that course as seniors. It's just something that they have an interest in, so they're doing it. So it really depends on each student's interest.
And I tell a lot of the students, because we do get quite a lot of students interested in robotics. One way to get involved also is through one of the club programs, and really satisfy their desire for technology in the Makerspace Club, in the 3D Printing Club. That is all accessible to the boys when they come in as ninth graders. Immediately they can take part in that. So that is there for them. Let's welcome Marty's cat into the session tonight. Marty, it's always good to have your cat join us.
It brings me back to the virtual learning. That was an occurrence that happened a lot. So sorry about that, but I got a house full of animals.
All good, Marty. All right. Our next question comes from Maribel. How is wellness factored into all the academics and athletics demands from school? I remember hearing about a wellness program of sorts. And Arlene, you mentioned that a little bit. Can you expand on that? These boys are faced with a lot, especially if they take advantage of the opportunities of St. Joe's to get involved and play sports and try clubs and strive to be the best they can be in the classroom. Can you just tell us a little bit more about the wellness program and how they have access to that?
Yes, we have a person that's here, Mr. Rosetto, and he is here 3 days a week, and he can meet with students upon request. Parents refer students to him upon request, and of course, teachers will refer as well if they see anything, any kind of difficulty that students may be having. He's worked with kids on a number of issues, as simply as a student has been out due to illness or an injury or what have you, and they're coming back to school and they're having trouble like organizing in terms of what catching up with work. He makes sure that we are in a healthy situation so they're not overwhelmed, and that he'll work with the teachers in scheduling what's to be done when. He's done things like that. He's also worked with kids who feel overwhelmed because of their inability to best organize themselves. He's worked with that. He's worked with personal issues that kids are having. The older they get, they have more of these dating issues, the girls, the guys, family problems, illnesses in the family, divorce, separation, things happen. And he's able to work with these students on a one-to-one basis and, keeps parents in the loop when in fact necessary. So there are a lot of ways to get the help via teachers, via referrals from parents, referrals from counselors. So he's here for the kids. We have, working with the college process and things like that with the kids. We really need someone who is going to devote themselves to the mental health. We all do it. I mean, we all do it, but it's nice to be able to refer out so that he sees the kids absolutely weekly, kind of thing, to follow up until, we feel very confident that they're on the right footing.
Right. All right, we have a couple questions regarding students receiving services. So students with IEPs or 504s traditionally will take part in some level in our learning center at St. Joe's, according to what their plan is calling for. One question that came in, does a student with who is receiving services, are they automatically placed in the CP level? I think the answer is no to that one, Dave. The services don't determine the level of curriculum, correct?
Correct. That's absolutely correct. Students are placed based on their HSPT and their grades. So we've had students in accelerated and honors level who have 504s or IEPs. And again, if a parent says, no, I'd prefer my son be in CP, we could make that happen. But we place them with no regard to their IEPs or accommodations.
Okay. And Robin has a question. If a child has an IEP or 504, but aspires to advance and improve, may he opt out of the accommodations? Arlene, why don't you talk about that? You know, the IEPs, according to, you know, they often expire for students, and families do have that choice. Am I right? With if they'd like to continue?
IEPs don't really expire, but 504s need to be updated annually to continue it. With the IEP, you can take as much or as little. We do not force services on anyone. I can tell you that there are sometimes people will come in and they will not disclose that the student has an IEP. Not necessarily a great idea. But I will then say, I have an IEP, I need to get, you know, I want the services. That's, you know, that's not always the best way to go. I always say freshman year, if they have the services, if they have an IEP, if they, you know, it might be better to start with receiving services so they start out strong. And then if we need to wean, it's better to wean the services if we don't really need it. In fact, in 9th grade and 10th grade, the Learning Center is 5 days a week. It is in place of the world's language. Not an issue because they're able to complete their world language in junior and senior year and meet that 2-year requirement. But you do not have to be 5 days a week. You could opt for an after school learning center as well. So you do have that flexibility. Please contact me directly in terms of that, and I'd be happy to discuss that further with you. I have read over IEPs. I need to really see if it's a pullout, you know, what kind of accommodations the student's getting, and then I could best advise what you might want to do. But I always say, always start with the support if you know, to make sure that the student is on good standing, and then we can always remove the accommodations if we need to.
All right. And from an admission standpoint, if you do, if your son does have an IEP or 504, we do ask that you upload that paperwork to their profile as part of the application process. Okay. Elizabeth has a question. Approximately how many students are in the Knightsbridge program? Marty, it's a small program. It's designed to be a small program. I know we've had anywhere from 10 to 13. We usually don't let it get much bigger than 14 or so. And that environment, that small learning environment, Marty, that's a big advantage to you as a teacher with these boys. Is that right?
Well, yes, it is. And there has been discussion, what if it goes beyond that? And I know we are exploring that as a school, you know, at what number, and the individualization is the important thing there. So in fact, to handle that, I'm a team teacher in both the math classes and the science classes too. So there's 2 teachers and to go into the classroom there. There's also going to be, just to meet the needs moving forward, we said we have a whole marking period of data. Here's the students we have. There's going to be team teachers in language arts as well coming in. So we do all we can to make sure the needs of all learners are met on an individual basis when we have to do that. And I think that answers the question, but if I didn't hit the mark, let me know.
No, you're right. And from an administration standpoint, we have had those discussions. If the program gets too big, it's not designed to be a big program. So if the numbers did swell to, you know, close to 20 kids, we would likely divide into 2 Knightsbridge classes. Hopefully hire another teacher to take care of that so that we kept that small learning environment. I think a class too big defeats the purpose of what that program was designed to do. So we don't anticipate it getting much bigger than it is right now. Peter has a question. Is there ever a conflict between honors classes and elective classes? I don't know if Dave or Steve, you want to take this. When a student is in the honors program and they're on a certain track for honors, they still have that ability to choose electives as juniors and seniors. Isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So freshman and sophomore year, there are no electives other than their language. Everything they're doing is college preparatory. So now as they get to be juniors, their options, you know, you don't need to take a 3rd year of language. You have other options. You don't need to take a phys ed course. So juniors are going to have 3 electives, where seniors will have 4 electives. And it's possible there would be a conflict if they wanted, you know, advanced placement psychology and advanced placement biology, and they happen to be at the same period. So typically, if there's something like that, it may not work junior year, but by senior year, they'd have the option to take the other course. So it usually will work out. Typically, the way the schedule works is that the students in the honors program are taking the same types of courses, taking the same AP courses. So the schedule just kind of works itself out where, because so many of them want that, it's rarely a problem. It's more often a problem if an honors or advanced placement student wants to take, a lower level course just because they're interested in something there. And that may not fit into their schedule as a senior, but it's rare that it happens. So that's the kind of thing guidance will work with each of the students in the spring before the year starts. And then I'll work with them after that to kind of tweak schedules as need be.
Okay. And Arlene, when you meet with those students in the spring, do you help guide them a little bit and seeing what's available to them, where they may want to start looking for elective classes?
What their interests are, what their possible major may be, because we do a lot of career guidance in 10th grade kind of thing. So they have an idea of what area they may want to go into. So emphasizing those kind of courses, that this may be a good exploration kind of course to see if this is really something that you're interested in. And the other thing is we really try to take our kids from CP level and advance them. And it may not be in every single area, but it's important, for colleges to be able to see as much as possible that the students' rigor and is increasing and that their grades are holding steady. So that's a real great thing for a guidance counselor to be able to write in their letter of recommendation. So even if it's in, just a couple courses, we want to be able to maximize their full potential. Whatever strengths they have, we want to maximize.
Okay.
And the other thing is the Learning Center. I just want to emphasize that just like Mr. Doherty's Knightbridge class, we do have limits on the amount of kids that we take with IEPs. 504 is not an issue, but IEPs, because again, we need to service our students appropriately that have IEPs. So we have limits on the number of students that we will place in that class. So I encourage you, if your child does have an IEP, I encourage you to apply early, accept early, get your spot into that if they're going to need that 5-day a week a process, because that would be a really important thing to get done earlier rather than later. I wouldn't want anyone not to get the services that they need to be successful.
Right. And we are transparent with families. We are not a large public school system with that have endless amounts of services available. We are transparent to families, explaining what services are available. And then families have the ability to decide if that suits their son's needs. I know Arlene has those conversations and phone calls all the time with families have concerns. Principal Bruno has a lot of those conversations as well. So if you do have questions about that, feel free to reach out to us directly or to me, and I can put you in touch with Principal Bruno or Arlene. No problem with that.
I think what's really nice is that we have so many levels of classes. So that really does help us in terms of, placing properly as well.
Okay, remember, we have a few minutes to go. So if you have some questions, please type them in the question and answer box on your Zoom screen, and we'll get those answered right away for you. Our next question is regarding grades. Do parents have access to their son's grades throughout the year? Steve, you want to talk about the grading process, the teachers, where it goes, and how families can access those?
Yeah, we use the wonderful program called Genesis, which is we ask the teachers to update that weekly to make sure that all the grades that have been going on from that week are there for the parents to take a look at. They have full access there. It comes with a mobile access on your phone, or you can go to your computer. Teachers are constantly updating that, and you can constantly see day to day what's going on in Genesis. And you can also go into Google Classroom and find the assignments that are due at the time. Once you get access as a parent to the Google Classroom, you can actually see deadlines and upcoming assignments that are going on in each class as you go along. So it's full transparency in every classroom, more than we've ever had. And if one thing came out of the pandemic was that the teachers have become much more tech savvy in terms of being able to run these grading programs and run Google Classroom, so that we can have a parent almost right there in the classroom with us.
Okay, our next question is from Natalia. Are there any international trips? Now, I've only been back at St. Joe's for a couple of years now, and I wasn't really here pre-COVID. So possibly Arlene or Dave may be able to answer this as far as international trips. I know of many field trips locally. I know of many of the athletic teams do trips that are national around the country. I don't know of any international trips that we have.
And I think it was right before COVID, Campus Ministry did a trip to Mexico one summer. I believe they did another one as well, but that maybe Canada, I believe as well. There have not been European trips since I've been here, which is now 9 years. Most of our students, as you said, are field trip type things. A number of them will do trips in the summer to Esopus. Esopus is a camp run by the Maris brothers for special needs children and underprivileged children. And a good number of our students will volunteer there in the summer. In fact, a number of our faculty will volunteer, a number of our alumni will volunteer. High school, college students from all over the country will come to volunteer in the summers in Esopus. It's on the Hudson River, about an hour north of St. Joe's. And they'll basically spend a week helping out, again, special needs, underprivileged children. So a number of the students have taken the opportunity to do that, and that's a phenomenal program.
Okay. Our next question is about the college process. When does the college process begin for a high school student at St. Joe's, and what does that involve? Arlene, I know it's kind of it's a big picture process. It starts early and carries all the way through their years at St. Joe's. Is that right?
Like I said before, the kids may not realize the college process starts in 9th grade, but we kind of make it, hey, we're working on the college application, getting ready your resume. Mr. Doherty goes into the classes and has them do a survey, likes, dislikes, special interests, academic areas of interest. And then he goes in and starts that resume, making sure that they are involved in things inside and outside of school. That's going to be all a part of that college application process. So where does it begin? It really begins in 9th grade. And in 10th grade, we do a lot in terms of career. We do a lot in terms of trying to bring those kids up in terms of rigor. They've transitioned into the school. We know their strengths. We know what challenges they are able to take on. And then, in 11th grade, it becomes all college. We have individual meetings with college. I have my another junior college meeting next week on Thursday. We'll go through what we use, which is Naviance, which is a college tool that they use. It interfaces with the Universal Common Application, which 99% of students use to, in fact, apply to college. It is an ongoing process. It's not an easy process. We make it as simple as possible. I also offer a class in the summer of junior year. It's a 4-day class, usually 3 different sessions, where we bring them through the whole completing the common application, working on their essay question with an AP English teacher. I'm an English major myself, so we all work together, and we get them to maximize their application. But it really starts early on, because the activities and their experiences that they often have to write about in supplements and on the personal essay that they do, it's all a part of their life and what they've been involved in. So it's, and then we have a lot of different experience in terms of college reps coming in. Hundreds of college reps come in, meet with the kids. They sign up through Naviance, which is that program again that I spoke about, and they will sit down with the kids and talk about their schools. And that's how the process absolutely works.
Okay. Our next question, the math placement test that was mentioned, when does that take place? Dave, can you share just general timing of when that would happen for a student?
Absolutely. So for the past few years, since we've started using the HSPT, we found that that's an incredibly reliable indicator of how well students will do and where they should be placed. The one place where it's come up short is in terms of algebra, because it really doesn't focus on any algebra skills. So this year, we're going to start having a math placement test only for students who are looking to place out of algebra. Most of our freshmen, most of our 9th graders are going to take Algebra 1. So it's going to be either a CP or an accelerated level. And if they're happy with that placement, there's no need for a placement test. But for students who feel like they've taken algebra and mastered it, there are a number of other options for them in terms of their schedule for the following year. So what we would do is we would, after registration, probably late March, early April, we would have an in-house test only for those students who are interested in placing out of the algebra course. And it would be an hour test at St. Joe's one Saturday morning, again, late March, early April, just for those few students who really wanted to do that. It's probably, it just gives us just a better indicator. Since COVID started, since the pandemic, we know math, scores overall have been lower in the grammar schools nationwide. They've been lower, so we want to have something that's going to give people the best possible place for their son to go. So again, that would be in the spring after registration.
Okay. And speaking of testing, of course, to remind everyone, the HSPT exam is required as part of our application for ninth grade. So the test was given a couple weeks ago. There was a makeup date a few weeks ago. If your son has not taken the HSPT and is interested in applying to St. Joe's, I ask that you contact me directly, and we can talk about your options for that. So please give me a call or email me directly, and we can talk through that. Staying on the same theme as testing, what does St. Joe's do to prepare students for the SAT exam? Arlene, can you talk about that a little bit? As the boys get older at St. Joe's, those the PSAT and the SAT are looming for these guys.
Yes, absolutely. It's still very much, as you all know, there is that whole test optional thing going on. At the 80% of the schools next year, class of 2023, are going to not need to take testing. But I always say that doesn't mean you're not taking testing, because if it can increase your attractiveness of your whole package, you definitely want to have good test scores. So the SAT is still an important ACT is still an important component of the process. What we do, well, really, it's a matter of the English classes and the math classes and the history classes, just teaching them the way you develop your vocabulary. It really is by reading and writing and doing those DBQs and what have you in the classes. But as far as the math, it's going to be very much driven to, the math levels and how well they do in math. We do have an SAT prep program that Mr. Kintish runs. He has a class that students can sign up for. He has been doing this for a many years, and he's an expert. He's a master in the craft. So many of the students will sign up with him. There are outside tutorials as well to do the SAT, but all of our curriculum really is concerned about the reading, the writing, the mathematics in terms of developing those higher level thinking skills. So that's the best you can do in terms of preparing for the SAT. But as we all know, students who are serious do go into private, do take some test prep for it. And you can do it or not. You can even do an online. Our kids are so savvy now. You can do an online course. You can do an in-person course. Kids will get private. Kids will do group. And we give recommendations. We know the tried and true people who, are successful with those programs. So we help in that way.
Okay, great. Robin has a question. Is there summer work? Do the boys read novels and do math packets? So as eighth graders, Robin, your son, if he's coming to St. Joe's, he would get his summer work at our orientation dinner, which is usually in May. And that does include a few books that they are required to read. There is some math work. There is some science work that they have to complete. And Dave, that goes on throughout the 4 years. The boys have summer work each year as students. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yes, they do. They'll typically read 1 or 2 books over the summer, and we'll always have a math packet and a science packet that they'll work on. And then it depends on the electives they choose. If you're going to take an advanced placement course, there'll definitely be a summer packet that goes along with that.
Okay. All right, we got a couple minutes remaining. If you do have any final questions for our esteemed group of panelists here, please type them in now so we can get them covered. Question to you, Marty, and I'll ask this. you've been doing the Knightsbridge Academy for a few years now. Is there a common theme you've seen with the type of students in your class coming out of 8th grade needing that extra time, or is it quite wide ranging of why the Knightsbridge Academy is beneficial to a particular student?
Yeah, it's a good question, because each year you really don't know what group you're going to have in front of you. You know, there might be group dynamics that have to be worked on because that's the skills that they need, or there just might be group dynamics where they're just molding together and gelling. So that's going to go for any class. You know, if you have a class of 25 freshmen, you want to get your class melding together and working together. So as far as a group goes, no, there's no tendency, because you just have to see how they're going to play out, how they're going to interact. And along the way, you want to enhance their social skills, how they get along with one another, how they work in a group together, both for being academics and for later in life when they're going to have to work with people in a work profession as well. So that's the group dynamics there. The individual one, well, that's going to be every year. Everybody's bridging for a different reason, so we're going to meet the needs of the individual as needed.
Okay. Robin has another question. Is there study hall worked into the day? So this is kind of two-pronged, if we could answer this, guys. First off, from an athletic standpoint, I know freshman football players in season, they were required to go to study hall this year after school, before practice. That was non-negotiable every day. I know athletics is looking to make that commonplace for all freshman athletes while they're in season. I think a lot of athletes come on and they get overwhelmed a little bit with their workload in the classroom, their homework, their studying that needs to be done, along with being in season and practicing and training. So I think a study hall is going to benefit. We saw that with the freshman football players this year before practice, and I think a lot more athletes are going to start seeing that as this year goes on, and certainly into next year. As far Arlene, I know students who are part of the Learning Center, whether they have that 504 and IEP, they do get a study skills type of class that they go to as part of the Learning Center, right?
Yes. In 9th grade, it's a 5-day-a-week program or an after-school program, depending on the student's needs and wants. In 11th and 12th grade, again, we try to wean our students off of services. They get 2.5 days a week kind of thing. It's 2 days 1 week, 3 days another, and alternates. It's very successful. We've been blessed. We've been blessed with Bergen County Special Services in terms of the teacher that we have here. He's tremendous. He works so well. He's equally gifted in math and English, which is not, typically the case. With the right brain, left brain kind of thing, but he is equally as gifted. It helps the students in the math and the English, in the writing skills. So it works out quite well. And then, of course, the teachers are there after school. The teachers are there after school for extra help. So that's your first, that's the line of defense for everyone. It's not, it's not only the kids with the IEPs that need the extra help. The teachers are there, from the end of school to the 2:30 kind of thing for the extra help sessions. And that's an important component. That's the first step in getting extra help.
And I know I've spoken to many families about the structure of our school day, especially when that final bell rings at 1:56. Athletics is not allowed to start till close to 3 o'clock. And that's designed to give the boys a chance to do what Arlene's talking about, meet with teachers, get extra help. If they didn't do well on an exam, they're unsure why, we'll go meet with their teacher. We teach them to be to advocate for themselves and go speak with those teachers. They have that opportunity to do that immediately after school. They also have the opportunity to do some work after school. Many of the boys go to the media center to get their homework done before a practice or a rehearsal. They can get some studying done if they have an exam the next day. So that window is there, and athletics is not allowed to start. Usually any time before 2:45, they cannot have practice, so the boys can get their work done and get their studying done before they hit the field. Stephen has a question. If a child is an Algebra 1 honors in public school, are they still asked to take the math test in the spring for math placement? Dave, do you want to take that one?
Yes, absolutely. Again, this year we had 145 freshmen coming from 120 different schools, and every math program we found is slightly different. So it was really hard to find something to say, this is a uniform way of looking at this. So if they are going to place out of Algebra 1, we would absolutely have them take the test, just because every school's teaching it differently. And again, with COVID, things have been done differently. So this is the first year we're doing it, but I think the way we would do it would be to anyone who wanted to place out, because there are other options after Algebra 1. So right now we have a slash course, which is a combination Algebra 1, Algebra 2. There's a geometry accelerator, there's geometry honors. So we would want to have the math department look at their skills on our tests so we can best place them for where they will go in our levels for our math courses.
And
You
this
know,
is
you may
another,
see this,
go ahead.
you may really see this as, you know, this is an inconvenience. My son got an A in algebra, you know, 1 honors. But I'm telling you, when they go, if we were just to place them in geometry, it's an outlier. Geometry is an outlier course. You know, you do need some algebra for geometry, but it's going to bite you in the butt the next year when you go into algebra 2. And unless you really do have that strong base, algebra, that's the fundamental class in all of the math classes. So we just want to make sure that knowledge is there, because to learn, you know, to have to catch up with algebra 1 in algebra 2 is really problematic. And so we just want to make sure that everyone is going to be able to maximize their potential and get the best grades on that transcript that they can possibly get. So I think it's just a benefit, just so you're reassured, he has the skills. We have no problem to go right to the geometry, because if they're in algebra 1 honors, the reality is the likelihood they're going to be in geometry honors, which is going to be a higher level conceptual skill as well. So you want to make sure that they're just ready to rock.
And this is another example of where our size as a school is our strength. These conversations are available to you as parents. Arlene is there to have this conversation with you. Dave is there to talk through the math placement process one-on-one with families. They have a lot of these conversations, and they involve the parents. Parents are involved in this process. They take the feedback from the parents, and they shape that into the type of academic experience that the boys have at St. Joe's. I don't think a lot of schools that are quite a bit bigger than us can do that. I think it's just too cumbersome with that many students, but we are able to do that, and it's something that we are certainly proud of. All right, I think we're coming up on the top of the hour, so we're going to wrap things up. A lot of great questions tonight regarding curriculum and guidance. Remember, our final installment of our SOFA Social is next week, and that is the parent-to-parent SOFA Social, and you'll be able to register for that beginning tomorrow. We're going to have current parents of students, alumni parents, some parents who are currently teachers at St. Joe's, so you'll be able to pick their brain on what the experience as a parent has been like having a son at St. Joe's. So I want to thank Arlene and Marty and Dave and Steve and all of you for being with us tonight. And we hope to see you next week in our final and 4th installment. Again, remember that application deadline is coming up quick, everybody. December 9th, we're now 9 days out. So please, when you can, get that application in, and it'll continue your process and your son hopefully becoming a Green Knight. Okay, have a great night. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.